Is Michelle coming or just you?
Just on Zoom.
On Zoom.
What's yeah.
We don't want.
Some of my impacts.
801 255.
She's out walking dogs for
363.
clients. Yeah, she was out walking dogs for clients when I left.
She was. Hey, you gotta go above and beyond, man. You want those referrals, you gotta.
Well, yeah. She's like, yeah, we can show the house, but someone's gonna go let the dog out and walk it while they're there, so.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that funny?
Hey, Kim. There's Ashley. Let's see. We got Sean. Hey, Sean. And Martell. Welcome, guys. We're gonna give it just another minute. Let some more people pop on, but we are right at the top of the hour, so we won't wait too long. Good to see you guys. And Ashley, you just look like you're hanging out at the lake. No fair.
I am. Everyone's out there playing games. I'm in here. I'm ready to learn.
Ready to learn. Yeah, well, we got the one and only Josh in the house, so get ready. Hey, Kaylee. Good to see you guys. So we'll probably mention this again, but for you guys on Zoom, there is going to be a slide with a QR code and a URL address where you can fill out a form so that you can get your CE credits. And then Josh will kind of explain how that works. You doing the keyword?
Yeah.
Okay, there will be 3 keywords throughout the presentation. Just kind of write them down or whatever. It's just kind of like, were you really here? And so don't text me and say, hey, what were the keywords afterwards? Because then I'm on to it. I get texts during everyone. It's like, hey, I missed the keyword. What was it? Yeah. Look how sharp Eric is. You see this picture online? Handsome Eric, huh?
Yeah, I think our photographer here is next week, right?
Carrie, is she next week? Yeah, on branding. Yeah, she's branding like a boss, I think it is. Hi, how are you? I'm Jeff.
Marchant.
Marchant?
Yes.
Nice to meet you. Have we met before?
Nope.
Welcome.
I've been on your Zoom before.
Nice, nice. Well, I'm glad to have you in person. Was there anybody else downstairs? I can hear people talking.
Someone's talking to Lynn, but I don't.
She always holds people up. I always have to go down there and say, come loose, we're gonna get started. Hey, Chase, to see ya. Haley, are you on one of your flips? Is that a stud wall behind you? Look at, you got your hammer. She's working on a flip and doing some learning.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm sweeping and nailing in nails in the subfloor.
Super cool. Oh, Martell, you were muted. It looked like you were trying to talk.
Can you hear me now?
Now I heard that. Yeah, I just put you guys up on the other screen. So
I was just saying, Kaylee, that's where I came from, climbing through insulation in the attic and working. So I was curious if you were doing the same. But I'm taking a break. I like the break.
Good. This will be our primary residence in Eden, actually. So it feels better to be working on a primary than a flip sometimes.
You have people that say, do you really work on your own flips?
I get nervous of the power tools. I really do. I feel like I'm gonna lose a finger, but I'll do the sweeping any day.
Just say hi to the folks in person here. We got Josh right there. All right, you all know Josh, that's why you're here, right? Okay, give me one more minute. Hi, okay. Shelby, nice to meet you. Yeah, that's right. You're probably just what's your name? Hey, you with? There's drinks in the fridge and there's water here. You guys, if you need some water, drinks, whatever. What do you say we get started? I gotta pull this back around though, so I can take this up here. And then I'll share your screen, Josh. Sophia, nice to see you joining us. Okay, Ashley told me I have to introduce myself because I just usually rip right into this, and some of you don't know who I am, but my name is Jeff Marchant. My wife Lynn is downstairs. She'll be joining us here shortly. We're at the Marchant Real Estate Group at EXP, and we love doing these trainings. I just love connecting people with awesome content, people, presentations. This one has to be a CE credit. Happens to be, I hope you're not here just for that. This is a pretty good topic, right? Mindset and habits. And when you mentioned it, when you're here, you're sponsoring somebody else's training. You're like, yeah, I do this class on that. I'm like, why haven't you told me that before? You've been here 100 times and I didn't know you did this. So we got him on the calendar. And so I'm super excited for it. So Josh with Silverback, he's been awesome. He's been our home warranty guy for a little while, and I say this all the time because it's true. But home warranties, they're all pretty similar. There's some uniqueness between the home warranties. Josh can argue with me if he wants to say Silverback does this or whatever, but it's really relationships for me. It's like, who's your rep? Who are you going to call when there's a problem? Who's going to take care of your people? And do you have that type of connection? To me, that's more important. I don't even know what the 800 number is for the home warranty company, right? It's like, Josh. So, he's not here to talk about that per se, but all of you probably know him and know what he does in that arena. So Josh, I'm gonna let you come up here and kind of introduce yourself.
Okay.
Any additional things you want to say there? And then I've got your PowerPoint pulled up, so I'll switch the screen share over and you can just rip into it.
Okay.
Okay, awesome.
Should we flip over to it?
Yep, I'm
Okay.
gonna share right now. Here's your clicker.
How's this work? It's just left,
Yep.
right?
Yep, you'll just put the arrow. It's pretty simple. Even I can do it.
Well, I'm not
So
quite as-
arrow.
There it is. Here we go. Okay. Well, I'm super happy to be here. Yeah, about, what was it, 2 months ago, I presented about the home warranty company. Since this is CE, I won't talk about it too much, but yeah, and I had mentioned that we do CE classes, and just, what are you talking about? I didn't know that. So I've been holding off on you guys. But I'm super excited to be here. I hope you guys can bear with me. The hybrid, I've only done it like once or twice between Zoom and in person. So for you on Zoom, all of the content I'm going to be speaking. If I don't look directly at you and I look at the audience, that's just because I like to connect with people and it's easier for me. But if you guys have questions or comments, please feel free to chime in, and don't necessarily have to wait to send a message or raise your hand in the Zoom chat. Just start yelling and we'll stop talking and let you join. Okay. Can we be off camera except to talk? I hate being on camera. Yep, no worries. Yeah. If you're sending a message, you're there. So yeah, if your camera's off, that's okay. Like Jeff mentioned, we'll have keywords and I will say, this is a keyword. You should probably write this down. So it's not like it's going to be hidden and you have to guess what the keyword is.
That would be kind of cool though,
Yeah,
actually.
that would be. But I want you all to get the credit.
Take past that.
So we'll have the credit and then you'll just email that at the end with the keywords. So I love talking about this topic. I guess I'll ask this, who's here for CE credit? Who's here for mindset and habit talk? Yeah, that was a trick question. It's fine. If you're here for CE credit, that's great. It has its value, but I really love talking about this because it's one of the few classes that you'll take as a real estate agent that for me is more introspective. This is a life class. It's not just, okay, how do I generate more leads in my business? How do I do real estate better, right? It's not talking about forms. We're talking about what's going on in here. And this is kind of a crazy place to play, is in your mind. But we're going to talk about your mind, and
That will help you do real estate better.
that will help you do real estate. So that's the connection of this class to your real estate business. Welcome. So my hope in this class is not necessarily just what I share, the content that I share with you, because there are some techniques, habits, different things that you can apply. But most of what we'll talk about are practices. And I invite you, as I'm talking, whatever impression or thought comes into your mind of, oh, hey, I think that applies to me. I could use that in my life. Write that down. I can share the slide deck with you afterwards, so you don't have to worry about writing every single thing down. Just write what applies to you, because that's what you're actually gonna put into practice, right? And it could be something that's not even on the slide or not even something that's shared, but an idea that comes to your mind. That's what you want to take away from this class. So that's my invite to you. And then the other reason I love teaching this class is to build relationships. So I'd love to build a relationship with you and meet with you after. I've met with lots of people talking about mindset and habits after the class. We've worked through some things. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. I know a few things, but I'm not a professional in the psychiatry space. But that's one thing, the other part that I love about mindset and habits is, you guys have probably seen this in your life, right? You can be on point, you can be an expert in mindset and habits, and something happens in life that just totally derails you, right? And the purpose of this class is to give you practices and things that you can rely on when life gets hard, right? Death, divorce, kids. I have a 4-year-old. I'll introduce my family here in just a bit. I have a 4-year-old and 1-year-old, and man, kids throw your life for a loop, like big time, right? And I'm sure grandkids, you just get them for the fun part, right? So that's the whole purpose of the class, is to give you techniques and things that you can use when life gets hard. Okay. See, Jeff, I told you.
No, every time I touch the screen, it does this. That's my thing. No, it should work.
So it should work
Try
out.
trade.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So I hope you guys will share what thoughts you're having. If you feel like, oh, this is cool, I should share this, please share it, because somebody else in the room needs it. So that's an invite for you for participation. I can flap my gums with the best of them. Ask my wife, like, I can sit here and talk for 4 hours if you want me to. I won't do that to you, but I can do it. But I found this class is, it's a discussion more than just me giving you material. People walk away with better content. So please feel free to interact and share your thoughts. I'm an open book in this class. I don't cry often. My wife wants me to be more emotional. This class I've cried a few times. Thoughts, feelings that I've shared from my own life. They're just, I've seen people, yeah, we have a connection, whatever it is, feel free to cry if you need to take a moment to cry. Really feel like this is a space. That's what I love about coming to this office too, because the Marchant State provide a great space for moments like this, that we can talk and be open and grow together. So main topics we'll talk about today. We're going to talk about mindset, where it comes from, why mindset's important. We're going to talk about meditation, praise. We're going to talk about fear and distractions, self-esteem, and habit formation. Oftentimes we spend more of it of the time on the first 4, and then habit formation is, we quickly do it at the end. It just all depends on the discussion. We may get to focus more on habits, and if you guys are feeling like, hey, I think we're good on mindset, let's hop to habits, like, just tell me. I have probably 4 hours worth of material. So, and we're going to crush it into 2 hours. So don't feel bad if you're like, hey, I'd love to talk about habits for this last half of the class. We'll go to about noon, take about a 5-minute break. So if you use the bathroom, get a drink, and then we'll come back for the second half of the class. So we will plan to go to 1 o'clock. It's a 2-hour class. So sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. I love starting with this quote: only the disciplined are free, the undisciplined are slaves to their emotions and reactions. What does that mean to you? The disciplined are free, and the undisciplined are slaves to their emotions and reactions. Any thoughts? Like I said, I can share the slide deck with you as well if you want. Feel free to take pictures too. I can post for you, but if you don't want to or want to take notes, like know that I'll get that for you.
So I have
Any
a comment on that.
Yeah.
I'm reading The
Anyway.
Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And
Yeah.
he shares a secret of having scrolls. And the very first scroll talks about habit. And he said, you're going to be a slave to your habits, whatever they are, your, whatever you do on a daily basis, you're going to be a slave to it. So why not be a slave to good habits?
Yep, it's very true. Thank you for that comment. What I get from this is, the world tells us, do whatever you want, let your emotions flow, just be you, right? And in some respects, that's true. But when it takes you to the point where you're undisciplined in your priorities and your core values and what's actually important to you, you get carried away in those emotions and you become a slave to it. And you start to react to others' opinions, you react to your life circumstances. So defining who you are, defining your core values, defining what it is that you want to get out of life is super important to live a wholehearted and free life. Otherwise, you're just going to take in whatever life gives you. Okay. So for me, one of the pillars of my life is my family. So I'm going to do a quick introduction to my family because I talk about them a lot throughout this class. So this is Mel. She's my 4-year-old. We are best friends. I painted the exterior of my house recently, and I'd be out there painting. All of a sudden, I turn around. I didn't even know she was on the ladder with me. She's up there just wheeling. Oh yeah, like anything that I'm doing. I was showing Jeff. Well, I didn't show the video, but my uncle has this rope swing, and I jumped off the roof with this rope swing. It was not a great idea, but it worked out and it was a lot of fun. But I showed the video to my daughter, and she's like, "Can I do that?" Like she wants to do anything and everything that I do. I also have, I have a 1-year-old Emmy. She just turned 1 last week, and her and Mel are also best friends. They're kindred spirits, and yeah, I love them so much. And then our rock is my wife. And as you can see from our family, we got a pasty white kid like me and a Brazilian girl like my wife. So we're a good blend. They're both ours together. We get looks from people when we go to the store. Like, oh, that's a blended family there. So it's just funny the polar opposites. But in their personality, Mel is very outgoing, goofy, weird, just like me. And Emmy is very demanding. She's got the strong, will-powered Brazilian woman side to her. So, and I love it. And they're great. What I'll share with you as far as being a slave to our emotions and our reactions or being disciplined in what we do. This is the inside of my house. So my house is kind of a square, and all the rooms kind of go around this center atrium, and then there's a staircase down to the basement, similar format downstairs. And I have this chair, and I love the house because there's a lot of natural light. We have big windows in the front, but we don't turn lights on at all during the day because there's so much natural light from this center room. Well, I'll sit there every morning. I wake up and go to the gym, work out, and then I come and sit and I do some meditation. I read scripture. I read personal self-help books. And so I sit in this area. But why I share this is on the left is my room. So my wife's in there sleeping. The time of this picture, the baby's in there as well. So Emmy, when she was just born. On the right is Mel's room. Now it's Mel and Emmy's room. But the reason I share this is because every morning at about 7:30, that right picture is just coming up. That's okay. On the left, and this was about a year ago, Mel would come out and she would sit on my lap and we'd have a moment together. We would talk about her dreams, how she slept, what she's planning on doing for the day, what toys she's going to play with. And it was a really good moment for us to bond. And then about 4 months ago, Emmy decided to start waking up at 7:30. And so Emmy got to join in on the fun, and these are not favorable pictures of me, as you can tell. Like, it's 7:30 in the morning, I just worked out. And what's great is this moment. So I felt like I needed to connect with Mel, and I wanted her to learn the routine of understanding where she's at early in the morning and what she wants to do with her day, right? And so we established that, and it was a way for me to recenter. Why am I going out to work every day? I have to leave these beautiful kids at home, my wife. Why am I doing this? And they're my why. And so I wanted to connect with that why on a daily basis. The picture on the right is now Emmy, and Mel's sleeping in longer. I swear she's like a teenage girl already, but she's sleeping in a little bit longer. And so her and I aren't having this moment as often because my day requires me to leave already. But Emmy is waking up early enough. And so now her and I are doing the same routine, and it's been really a sweet moment for me. So my encouragement to you is establish a moment early in the day that reconnects you to your why. First, you have to establish your why, but then create a moment that allows you to connect to that why each and every day. Because if you don't connect to your why each and every day, 6 months will go by and you're like, where's my life? Where am I at? What's going on? I feel out of control. How often do you feel kind of out of control in life? It happens, right? That's when anxiety, depression, those feelings of I don't have control over my life come in, is because we don't often revisit our why. We don't often reconnect with who we are and what we're trying to accomplish. Any thoughts? It's okay if not. Okay. So I love definitions. I love understanding. Yeah, thought.
Yeah, so when you just said that, how many times do we feel out of control of our lives? It just brought me to thinking about something where there's only a few things that you can actually control in your life. And the first is what you're focusing on.
Yep.
And the second is what actions you're taking. And if you realize those are the only things that you can control, it helps you feel more in control, because that's all you can.
Sure. Yep, I love that. I have a list of books where a lot of this material comes from, and a lot of where my mindset comes from at the end that I'll share. But a book called The Little Book of Stoicism talks exactly about that, actually, of focusing on what you can and can't control. Well, focusing on what you can control and letting go of what you can't, right? And you'll find if you really dial it down, like there's very little that you actually control in life, right? But you can feel so powerful and at peace when you just focus on the couple of things that are most important, and come what may with everything else. So definitions, I love language. I love, there's a couple of expressions in Portuguese. Like I mentioned, my wife's from Brazil, and there's expressions in Portuguese that make so much more sense to me than they do in English, and it's been really beneficial. So I love language, and I love definitions of words. So mindset, as we're talking about it, is the established set of attitudes held by someone. So as we talk about mindset, know that what we're really talking about are your attitudes towards something. So whether it's a relationship, whether it's your job, whether it's yourself, your mindset is your set of attitudes. Okay, so if my mindset comes from the set of this thing, an attitude, what's an attitude? It's a settled way of thinking or feeling about someone or something, typically one that is reflected in your behavior. So you see the connection, we hear it all the time. Your mindset creates your feelings and your emotions or your attitudes towards something, which then leads you to often your behavior, your actions, right? And so that's why it's so important for us to first talk about mindset. How do we establish it? How do we get it on the correct page? So then our actions reflect what we truly want. And then we get into the habit formation and how do I make sure that I get predictable results in my life every single time. Does that make sense? Does that lay a good framework for us? Okay, so this is a question. I will stand here until I get some interaction. So, and I'm a salesperson. I love silence. Where does your mindset come from? Your thoughts, okay?
Here we move on.
What's that?
Now we can move on.
Now we can move on.
So I think it's a combination of all the stuff you put in there.
Yeah.
You form a mindset based on what you're putting into your mind. And so if you're putting the wrong stuff in there, you might have a kind of a shitty outlook on life or on things because you're concentrating on that type of content.
And where does this picture come from? Of what you're putting in? Where does that content actually come from?
It's from your life experiences, from media, from people.
Yeah.
Your environment.
Your response back to people.
Yeah. So your environment, your experiences is what was shared. So it's your past experiences, it's your today's emotions. Did you get cut off driving here this morning? That happens a lot to me. So what's your emotional response to that, right? And to go back to our original slide, if I'm not dialed in on what's important and if I'm not disciplined, I can get taken away into road rage, right? How often does that happen? Happens a lot for me. I'm the son of a Marine, so I got a really hot head. I'm working on it though. Yeah, your regular thought loops and the patterns of thinking. So the way you grew up, if you grew up in Utah, I grew up in Pennsylvania, so my upbringing totally different than growing up in Utah, right? You grew up in California, totally different. We live in the same country, but it's a lot different, right? I was born in North Carolina, so I got a little bit of the Southern growth in me, right? And mindset. My wife and I lived in Atlanta for a little while, and she got to experience that. And she's like, wow, like this is totally different than Utah, and like a lot of really good ways as well. So how you're brought up, your parents and their life experiences and their life choices forms your mindset, right? How you perceive the world. So in the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it talks about paradigms. And a paradigm is basically how you see something, right? So how Jeff sees life is completely different from how I see life, right? We probably have a lot of similarities because of the proximity of where we live and maybe some of our upbringings and things like that. But his current life situation, totally different than my current life situation, right? He's got grandkids, he's making a pool for his grandkids to come over and play. And I just have a crying 1-year-old baby at 3 a.m, right? So my outlook is different. So it's important for us to recognize that our paradigm is influencing our day-to-day mindset. So our body will never go somewhere where our mind hasn't been. I love talking about visualization, right? Because that's what mindset is, right? Is I have my core values, I have dialed in what I want out of life, and now I'm visualizing to bring it into the physical world. So this is my family. We're in southern Brazil. This last year, I believe this was Florianopolis. But anyways, we had envisioned this trip of going with my in-laws. We're now kind of spread out throughout Brazil, Argentina, and here in the US. And we envisioned doing a 2-week kind of beach hop throughout southern Brazil, part of the country that I'd never seen. And it was a nightmare trying to plan this. Like just everybody's in different phases of life. And then you've got the expenses of it, right? Family vacations are hard in that respect. But we visualized it. We talked about it for like 2 or 3 years and we made it happen. And this was the result. Beautiful beaches, got to play. This was before Emmy was around and I got to experience something totally different. So what I want, an exercise I'd love for you all to do is think of your 10-year-old self. Imagine back to where you were, the living situation that you were in. Are you with parents? Are you with grandparents? Are you wherever you were living at 10 years old? What would you tell yourself at 10 years old? Like knowing what you know now, what would you tell your 10-year-old self? Yeah.
Don't listen to other people's opinions when they're being mean.
Don't listen to other people's opinions when they're being mean. I love that. So good. I don't even go so far as don't listen to other people's opinions.
Ignore everybody in high school.
Yes. Yeah, high school does not matter as much as you think. Any other thoughts? Another one.
You can accomplish the things you set your efforts to.
You can accomplish the things you set your efforts to. That's great. I love that. For me, I've really if I were to boil one thing down, it would be express love more and gratitude more. I know there's been times in my life where I've taken for granted relationships, friendships. I've taken for granted things that I have that I've then had life experiences where I see people that don't have anything. And I'm like, well, my goodness, I should stop complaining that I don't have this or that, right? Or Amazon delayed my package delivery by one day. Like, oh my gosh. So for those of you who didn't share necessarily what you thought of, it's fine. What I want you to do is now think of this thing that you would tell your 10-year-old self. Do you apply it in your life today? What I found is when I ask this question to myself, I often have a pretty long list of life experience, a mindset around life that I would tell my 10-year-old self all the things to like just live the absolute best life. And I look at myself today and I'm not doing half of it. I don't even apply what I would tell my 10-year-old self. And I'm seeing it in reality with my kids now, right? At 4 and 1-year-old, I have these life experiences, and what I'm trying to avoid is telling them what they can and can't do because of my paradigm, because of my life experiences, while also sharing with them, like, these are things I know for sure, like these are truths, right? These are life experiences that it's not based off of outside influences, but these are natural laws or realities. So do that exercise at home. Think of your 10-year-old self, tell them a bunch of stuff, and then analyze back, am I doing these things? And are they actually true? Or is it just my past experiences telling me a story and I actually need to let that go and move on? Okay. Now, talk to yourself. I have here 50-year-old self, your 50-year-old self talking to yourself when you're 80. Just think of yourself when you're 80, 90 years old, whatever older age you want to do. I know age can be a sensitive topic. So whatever old age you want to have there, think of it. What would you tell yourself? Any thoughts?
Enjoy.
Enjoy the moments.
Well, I was talking with one of my friends, one of my older friends,
Yeah.
and she was saying, you know, the greatest accomplishment she ever had was her family. And she said, I wish I would have been a better mother. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And she said, well, I yelled and screamed, I didn't know she was younger and stuff. And I said, well, what things did your children, what have your children accomplished? As you raised them? She said, well, some of them don't have any patience.
Yeah.
She said, my suggestion to you, because I've done 4 years myself. She said, my suggestion to you, she said, be calm. And she said, something can happen if it's right.
Yeah.
But don't scream.
Yeah. On screen. I love that.
Be true to
Whatever it
yourself.
is. Go ahead. Thought?
Be true to yourself.
Be true to yourself. I love that. One thing that I would want to tell, and again, this exercise, because there's the exercise of asking your 80-year-old self something, which you can do, and that exercise is really cool because you can actually think in the future, and like we created this experience, you can do the same thing. Who do I want to be in 20 years? Who do I want to be in 10 years, in 5 years? And you can then create a visualization of what my life is going to look like, and then you can bring it to the physical world. But this exercise is telling yourself something when you're 80 or 90 years old. What I would tell myself is, you did it. You accomplished what you set out to do. And I'm a big believer of that. Like what I am doing today, if I think about it enough, I can create in this world for my life what it is that I want. So when I'm 50 or when I'm 60 or when I'm 80, I will be living what I envisioned today. Think and Grow Rich is a really good book. And it talks about that. It talks about visualization and bringing it into the physical world. It's a principle that we can all apply. And I would encourage you to do that. Okay. So World War II story. So there's Allied forces on this island, and they had built an air base, and there's some native people there. And so they'd fly in with resources. They're there doing trainings and everything. So they do their military marches and their salutes and their chants and everything. And the native people would watch them. And they also gave resources to the native people while they're there. And after World War II, they left. Air base stayed there. And years later, they came back to the base and found the native people doing what? They're out there doing the marches that they saw the military doing. They're doing the salutes and the chants, thinking that that's what brought the resources to the island, was these chants and these rituals, right? How often in our lives do we see a real estate agent and they're on TikTok and doing a podcast and doing all these things? They're like, oh my gosh, that's how they get all this business. I have to do a podcast too, or I have to do these things, right? We compare ourselves to the Joneses. That was great. I've never had somebody with the Joneses last name in the class. We always compare ourselves to the Joneses down the street, right? And we know that we don't know what's actually going on in the house, right? We don't know what's actually going on in that real estate agent's house. A lot of times I see people all over social media that aren't doing a single transaction, right? And so because they're following the footsteps of somebody else, thinking that's going to lead to business, right? So a principle for your real estate business would be, what do I want to do? What do I enjoy doing? What's going to make me wake up every morning and get after it, right? And that's what you go after, and not doing what the native people did on this island. And I'm just going to follow, thinking that things are going to show up because I'm watching somebody else. Does that mean we can't glean some information off of people? Totally, right? But you can connect with your better self better than anybody else, right? And you know what's important to you. So I'd encourage you to do that activity of, what is it that I'm good at? What is it that I like doing? What is it that if I had to do it every single day for the rest of my life, I would do that? And then wake up every day of your life and do that. It's really complicated. Okay, so let's talk mind. This is Bailey. Bailey's my dog. This is not my house, but it's a really nice picture of a house. Why I share this is we're going to talk about the different situations in our minds, right? How do we declutter? So Bailey is one of those life situations that you wish didn't exist, but you also can't get rid of it, right? Bailey is my wife's dream dog. This breed of dog doesn't exist in Brazil. It's Bernese Mountain Dog. It's too hot down there, right? And so, but she's always wanted this dog. We just bought our house in Bountiful, and like a month later, this dog appeared on the scene from a family influence, which obviously makes it harder for me, right? Because it's my family push. Anyways, I can see I'm still a little bit. I haven't worked through this problem, but I'm working on it. But Bailey's one of those life situations where on the outside, everything looks great, right? But you have something going on that, like, it's a situation you can't get rid of. Maybe it's a death in the family. Maybe it's a relationship issue, right? Or a work issue, whatever it is, it's something that it's a reality that can't be changed. Bailey's not leaving, right? I'm probably gonna have to leave before Bailey leaves. So what I've started to try to do, and it doesn't work all the time, but it gives me enough hope to get through having this dog, is I look at Bailey and I say, that's my wife's dream. Every time she's making me mad or does something that I don't like, this is my wife's dream in reality. And that has helped me deal with a situation that's not what I wanted, until, luckily for me, I mean, luckily, that sounds so horrible, but eventually then this problem will go away for me. It's not a permanent ailment forever, right? But I would encourage you to do that. If you have a situation in your life that everybody says, oh, look at the bright side, or look at the good side. You can do that to an extent. There's some things that you do just need to absolutely remove yourself from. But there are situations that you can look on the bright side and work through, and that's my life. So glean from that what you can. But in trying to get through our mindset and produce things on a daily basis, these things that ail you on a daily basis, you have to find a good light to look at them in, or else they'll cause you more pain than it's worth. How often is our mind like this? Anybody seen a listing photo like this? What, 2021? There's photos like this all the time. Listed in any condition. How often is our mind like this? Other people causing the issue, right? Kids, toys everywhere. That's how my house is. I had a really cool experience. I shared this picture and the lady raised her hand. She's a grandma at the time. And her daughter had recently got divorced and moved back in with her. And she had like 3 kids. And they're rather rambunctious. And she has like this house where everything's pristine, like in the perfect place, 0 dust, right? Like just the ultimate situation. She said for about 6, she was really burdened by the fact that now there's toys everywhere and there's smudges on the carpet now where there weren't before. And so we talked about it after the class, and she recognized that she only gets this moment with her grandkids for a certain time. Her daughter then was planning on moving into her own place after she got settled on her own feet. And her mindset shifted, her attitude towards that situation changed to, how often do grandkids get to live under the same roof as their grandparents? Not often. And it turned from a very bitter situation for her to a very sweet moment that she was grateful for. So again, one of those situations that you can look at like, oh man, this is not my ideal, but maybe there's a better lesson and a blessing underneath that not ideal situation. How often are our minds like this? Rather dark place, a place we don't enjoy going in. This is probably the hard topic of the class that I get through, and then we'll move on to great things and happy things. But this is always my invite. Suicide, unfortunately, has been a big part of my life, not for me personally, something that I've gone through, but I've experienced it a lot with loved ones. My wife recently as well, with one of her best friends growing up. And this is an invitation for any of you, if you find yourself in this space ever, I'm a resource. Like, you don't even have to tell me your situation or if you want to, but we don't have to become friends through it. Like, if you need somebody to share something with, I will be that person. Call me whenever. And one thing that I share in this moment too, I believe we're all connected in some way. And one goal that I set in my life is anytime anybody pops in my head, I send them a text message. I even have a canned text message. Like, it sounds terrible, but like, I have a canned text message when somebody pops in my head, depending on if they're a close friend, an acquaintance from work, or somebody that I've met in passing by, and I send them a text message immediately. And I've had many experiences, not where like, hey, I was thinking about doing this really bad thing, but hey, I needed that text, like, thanks, it was great reconnecting with you. So I would encourage you to do that. If people pop into your brain, they're popping into your brain for a reason. Reach out to them. And I found people, especially as real estate agents, people are popping in your head. Why? Maybe it's not because they're in this situation, but it's because they need to sell a house and they're on your brain because they're like, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house, and you're now supposed to connect with them and sell their house. Like, I'm a big believer of that. So reach out to people. If people come into your mind, like, that is your conscious, whatever you want to call that, telling you you need to connect with this person. It may be the reason you're wanting to sell a house and make a commission, or it could be to save a life. You don't know, but they're all equally important. Okay, so that's my invite to you. Connect with people. If they're coming into your head, reach out to them. And if you're in this space, please call me. I would love to be a resource for you. Okay, so every day you brush your teeth for dental hygiene. Why wouldn't you do something every day for good mental hygiene? I think we talk about mental hygiene quite a bit more nowadays than we ever did in past years. It was always a, hey, suppress it, put it away. And I think life is polarizing, right? You can also take it too far, and now you get in your own head too much and you live inside here in an alternate reality, right? But working through things is super important. So let's talk. Anybody know what tree this is? Anybody seen this before? It's called the mangrove tree. This is in the Everglades and down in southern Florida. And I love this tree because of these leaves right here. and the root system. So this, if you didn't know, trees are, I do sales now, but I studied biology in college, so great connection there. But the mangrove tree is one of the only trees that can exist in a saltwater area. All other trees need fresh water because they don't have a filtration system for the salt water. Same as us, we can't drink the ocean. It'd be nice if we could, so we'd have a lot more water. But we don't have a filtration system. So the mangrove tree has created these roots where it stays above the water. It goes into the soil below to secure itself, and it has a filtration system. And what it does is it takes all the salt from the water and it puts it into individual leaves, right? You can see that there's multiple yellow leaves because it's doing it simultaneously in multiple leaves, but the leaf will drop off, right? So it compartmentalizes all the salt. It allows one leaf to die so the rest of the tree can survive. And what's great is that leaf falls off and now becomes nutrients in the soil to help the tree grow. And what I get from this tree is there's so much in our life, so much crap, that salt that we have to go through, right? That we got to filter all the time. And we have to be able to put them into leaves and compartmentalize and let it go, let it fall to our roots. But the great thing is they become life experiences. We talk about our mindset. Where does it come from? It comes from our past experiences. If we're able to let them go, they now actually become nutrients for our future of who we want to become and what we want to do. Whether it's a positive experience or a negative experience. My dad, my grandpa was an alcoholic. And my dad said, I'm going to show up for my boys. It's just my brother and I every day. Every day he shows up. And my dad's got a lot of rough edges. Like I said, he's a Marine for 21 years with a lot of rough edges, but he's smoothed over. And now him and I had a thought about a month ago that I need to become a better friend with my dad. And so now I call him every day as I'm driving to work. And he's a person that I enjoy talking to nowadays. Probably not 20 years ago when I was 10 years old. I didn't enjoy talking to him all because he had a lot of rough edges, right? But my dad's done this filtration system of past experiences, working through his childhood, hard things that he's been through. But what I love about thinking about him is what I talked about at the beginning of this meeting is having that moment with my daughters is so important to me because I saw my dad, while he didn't have the best technique all the time in showing up, I'm very grateful for it because it's allowed me to learn from it and change how I show up for my kids, but show up nonetheless. So be a mangrove tree, build out a filtration system, and those filtration systems can look, let's jump ahead here real quick. They can be different. You can have different filtration systems. So it can be meditation. It can be personal affirmations. It can be breath work. Jeff and I have done breath work together, and I mean, breath work was, it's been a breakthrough experience for me. I would encourage anybody that wants to try it. Prayer, that's something that I do daily, and it doesn't matter what dogma or what God you pray to. The act of mindfulness and gratitude to the universe as a whole is super important. So call it prayer or call it mindfulness, whatever you want. Like, it's a really good practice. Conversation with a trusted friend. That's something that I found when I need answers to stuff. I talk to people that I trust, and often those answers come from those people. Exercise is really important. We'll talk, I'm going to talk about one thing here that deals with the physical body and how that actually helps our mindset, and reading. Anybody else have anything that you do as a filtration system on a daily basis? And we're talking about a daily activity. Yeah.
Journaling is something that I do.
Love that. Journaling is awesome. I'm listening to the book. It's called Influence. It's how to influence people. And it talks about journaling and how writing things down makes you committed because you have an extra feeling towards it and you've written it down. Whereas like verbally, you can commit to something, and how often does that happen? We all have those friends. Yeah, I'm gonna show up at 8 o'clock. They never show up, or they show up at 9. Oh, but when you write it down, you can be like, somebody can find that and say, hey, you said you were gonna do this and you never did, right? So journaling is awesome. Love that. I'll share something with you. So I would encourage you all to watch this documentary. It's called Stutz, S-T-U-T-Z. Has anybody seen it before? No? Awesome. Okay, if you can work through a few F-bombs, this is amazing documentary for you. So it's Jonah Hill, an actor. He did a documentary on his psychologist, whatever they're. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen that?
Yes.
So good.
So good.
And so what the psychologist, I'll just call him psychologist. I don't know if he's a psychologist, but he would give them note cards with just different practices and things to apply, because we're visually, it's easier to understand. And so I watch this. And so if you watch it, there's a bunch of different techniques that they share. It's called Stutz, S-T-U-T-Z. If you have filtration for nothing above PG-13, you're gonna have to allow yourself, because it won't show up. That was my problem. I needed my dad's account in order to get into it. But what he shares is something called life force. And this is your first keyword. So if you're on Zoom, you're going to want to write this down. This is not the diagram, but the word life force is your first keyword for credit. Yeah, it's on Netflix. Thank you, Sophia. You can watch this documentary on Netflix. So life force is this idea of, okay, I'm in a depressed state. I'm not in a good mindful state. How do I get out of it, right? Like, that's the number one question. And he talks about how if you focus on these three things, you will eventually find a way to get yourself out of the situation you're in. So the first one is body, and that's the pillar foundation. The second one is other people. And the last one is yourself, which there's a principle in that when you forget yourself, then you find yourself, and life makes a lot more sense. But he talks about how 80% of all of our problems would resolve themselves if we took care of our physical body. You don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to. So I'll share something with you. Recently, I've been going through this in the last like 6 months of my life, and not necessarily depressed state, but just not in the state that I want to be in, right? And so I had a thought one day about 6 months ago. I've never shared this before, so bear with me as if I can get through it or not. So my daughter, Mel, my best friend, right? She's super important to me. I got to a point growing up, I always wanted to be like my uncle. He was like the ultimate dad. I looked at him. He wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. He wore plain plain pocket tees. Like, that's all he ever bought. He always spent money on his kids, never spent money on himself. He just wanted to be a stay-at-home dad, hang out with his kids. And I was like, that sounds amazing. Like, let me just do that. But about 8 months ago, I was interacting with Mel, and I'm like, I have this feeling that I don't want to play with her. And I recognized that I just wanted to be a jungle gym. I wanted to lay on the ground, let Mel climb all over me, but I didn't physically have to do much, right? And I recognized that it was coming from my physical state, right? I had gained lots of weight. I wasn't very active, not eating great foods, all of those things. And that was like rock bottom for me. When I said, like, I don't want to be dad, essentially, like, that was really hard for me. It was a hard realization. So, and then I watched this documentary, and I'm like, oh, okay, let's give this life force a shot. And so I started focusing on body. And within a short amount of time, I mean, you can lose a lot of weight really fast. And as that started to happen, I wanted to connect with other people. So that's the second pillar, is connect with other people, right? When we are depressed, we remove ourselves from people. So we remove ourselves from ourselves, then we remove ourselves from people, and then we neglect our physical body. And as a whole, we've disconnected, right? So if we can reconnect with our physical body, take care of it, we now have a vessel to connect with other people, right? And connection is what drives, call it spirituality, call it your soul, whatever it is. It then allows you to focus on the inside, right? So take this for what it is. I know it works. So if you're in a space where you're like, oh, how do I, and even if you're in a really good space, you can always get to a better space, right? So think on these pillars. Am I taking care of my body, my vessel, the thing that allows me to be here and even think, right? And then am I connecting with other people? And then am I connecting with myself? Sound good? Thoughts? Mind blown. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So a couple of techniques, meditation. Anybody do meditation? Want to share what your technique is at all, or what that looks like? Because meditation is very broad, right? Like
Yeah.
that could be prayer for some people, that could be breath work for others. So
It kind of has to do with the breath work you were talking about. I like to start my mornings slow. I don't like to get up and be rushed anywhere. I like to take 2 or 3 hours of personal time,
yeah,
working out, doing breath work, stretching, whatever. But meditation for me is just like basically trying to eliminate all thought, get to almost a nothingness.
yeah,
So you have a good start to your day without, you know, sometimes you wake up and your mind's already jumping, you got all these things to do, this and that, but if you can quiet the noise and you just get to silence for 20-30 minutes and really try and eliminate all those thoughts, then you get to resort and pick and choose which ones you're going to give attention to. But if you are trying to give attention to all of them, it's very, very difficult. So that's what it is for me, is just start out the day super quiet.
love that. Quiet. Okay. This picture here is from southern Brazil. This is in Rio Grande do Sul, in the south, and there's this little road that you go up, and it's super sketch. Like there's trucks, like these sharp turns. It's like a two-lane road. And anyways, we went up it, and it's cool, but I was scared the whole way. Like I was white knuckling it the whole way up, and I had to back up because there's a truck kind of trying to come around the corner, and it was scary. Like everybody else is having a ball because they've done it before, and I'm just there trying to get through and survive, right? But what was great is we got to the top, and we had this amazing view, and I remember distinctly the feeling of like, man, if I knew what I was going for, or like where I was about to be, I would have pushed through that experience so much better. Like I still would have had that truck make me back up, right? I still would have had people yelling at me in Portuguese, a million miles an hour, like making me all scared and everything. Still would have had all of that, but knowing where I was going would have made it worth it, right? And so meditation does that for us. It allows us to refocus on where we're going. And again, why am I getting up to do what I'm about to do today? And making sure that what we're going through is worth it. When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. I love this quote, because pleasure is kind of one of those words, like, it's not a bad thing to have pleasure in your life, right? But what we're talking about pleasure here is, there's been one total word, so it's just life force so far, to answer the question on the chat. Pleasure, what we're talking about is masking our internal feelings or what's actually going on in order to get through that situation. So when we don't analyze and see the top of the mountain that we're trying to get through, right? That situation, we try to find self-soothing methods or pleasures to mask it. That's where alcoholism comes from. That's use of recreational drugs, pornography, all of these things that give us essentially dopamine rushes in life, pleasurable rushes. It's there to mask our actual issues, right? But when you have deep meaning and you're consistently analyzing where you're at, what you're going through, you're able to get through those without needing that rush. I'm not saying dopamine is bad, right? Like it's still fine to have in your life. You need to have pleasure, right? You need to enjoy. I'm an adrenaline junkie, so I like to ride quads. So you need to have pleasure and fun in your life. But what we're trying to avoid is using that to mask things that we're doing or have in our life that aren't healthy So
Yeah,
moments
I've
of
got a
clarity
comment
are free.
on that.
Yeah, go for it.
So I've got a comment on that. It's something that my mom and I have actually been learning is that when you're going for kind of those quick fixes, it's actually just a small dose. Like, for example, you can get like a small dose of dopamine by scrolling through your phone. But when
yeah.
you're getting it from like a more organic source, it's in larger quantities, but it also takes a lot longer to get there. So it's almost like those quick fixes that we use to get the rush of those positive emotions. Whereas if you're able to really connect with yourself, like you said, and other people and with your body, then you're able to get like even a higher source of that dopamine or oxytocin or whatever those different chemicals are.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then it just becomes a snowball, right? And you can't like oftentimes you can't stop it, and which is great, right? You want that wholehearted lifestyle and feeling full of full of dopamine every day, but in a good natural form. So quad riding is like my reprieve. For me, I've realized that it's because when you're on the throttle full speed on a 450, you're going like 70 miles an hour. And if you're not paying attention, that can be really bad, right? So it allows me to be in the moment 100%, like I can't not be focused. But it also creates great experiences. So on the left is my aunt and uncle's family and their kids. And then you've got this is pre-Andy, so Carol and myself, and then Mel. Mel is a Cavalier, so she can sleep anywhere. So she's asleep right there as we're riding quads. We have that gift. We got it from my dad. So I love that. But so with my aunt and uncle, they become really good friends of ours, and we've bonded through quad riding. But I can go for a weekend and or even a day and just full throttle on a quad. And it's like all the cares in the world are gone, right? The picture on the right, so Joey here, he was a teen, he's in Florida right now, but he was a teenager and he had a lot going on in his brain. He's trying to work through a lot of stuff. And so him and I would take his dirt bike, my quad, up to Francis Peak in Farmington. We live in Bountiful. And we'd go up there, we'd check out the sunset on a regular basis, and him and I would just have life conversations. Sometimes it was about girls, oftentimes it was about girls, actually. But we talked about girls, we talked about choices, we talked about truth versus not truth, or things that we make up in our head. We talked about the future. And so it became a bonding moment, right? You go back to body and then other people and then yourself. When you lose yourself and you connect with other people, you actually find yourself, right? So Joey helped me get through a lot of stuff as well as we're talking, and things that he needed I didn't know that I actually needed, and I was getting this information like, hey, you should try this, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should apply that in my life too. So I would encourage you to find. So we talked about daily having a moment, bringing back yourself to your why, also having occasional moments of clarity, joy, pleasure, right? Like I always look forward. I'm going to the sand dunes in September, right? I'm going to Brazil next month, but I'm looking forward to going to the dunes almost just as much because it's like my moment of clarity, right? So if you figure out whatever that activity is, it could be quarterly, it could be monthly, whatever frequency you need, figure out some kind of pleasurable activity that allows you to look forward. And what it does is it wires your brain and teaches you the ability to hold off pleasure to that moment or that activity that you're looking for in the future. Okay. Let's take a break.
You want to do it now?
Yeah, let's do it. So when we come back, we're going to talk about morning routines. We'll talk about fear, distraction, and then we'll get into habit formation. Okay, so let's take, what time is it now? 12:03, 5 minutes to like 12:08, or if everybody's back.
There's another restroom downstairs. If anybody has to use the restroom, you get up, stretch, or
Feel free to mingle or whatever, or just sit there and stare at me. That's fine. Those of you on Zoom, we'll take 5 minutes and then we'll get back to it.
you're not gonna do like comedy or anything during the break.
I do have a couple good dad jokes.
Yeah.
I could look up some dad jokes. My wife and I, it's kind of funny. we go to dinner and like, we talk all the time, right? Like pillow talk or just over dinner at home. But we go to a restaurant, it's like we've never met each other. Like for whatever reason, we go silent, like we're there eating. We people watch too. That's kind of a game of ours as we go out on dates. But yeah, like I realized like, hey, we don't talk very much. So what we've done, she bought this game and we do this at night too. Like it's basically a table topics game. And there's random cards that ask the question and you have to give an answer. And so it's like,
Sounds like a dating.
yeah, like, but I mean, we've been married 7 years now, and every time we go, we put a couple cards in our pocket, or I pull it up on my phone, and we start going through, and it leads us, like, we only need 1 or 2 cards, and then conversation gets going, but it's hysterical. I'm like, I don't know why we need this, but yeah, but it's great because we get into random conversations, and I learn things about her that I didn't know, because the card forced her to share an experience.
So it's when you go out.
It's when we go out to
Not when you eat dinner at home.
well, no, kids are there, right? So we're usually trying to make sure that Mel's
It's like date night.
yeah, whenever it's just us and we can have a moment, like we use the cards to get into deep
That's
conversations. Yeah,
Yeah.
Where were you born in North Carolina?
Jacksonville,
Okay,
so the naval base there.
so I was born in North Carolina, moved to
Okay.
New Jersey,
Nice.
and then out in here in Utah.
No, I'm just kidding. Jersey. Yeah, but I'm on the Pittsburgh side. I'm not on the Jersey side. What part of Jersey?
So it's a borough,
Okay.
so it's not even really, nobody knows it, but do you know Edison?
I've heard of it. I've never been there.
So my house was about 15-20 minutes to Jersey City, like right below the
Okay.
boundaries.
Yeah.
You can see Statue of Liberty and everything.
Nice. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Jersey's cool. I was just.
What brought you out here?
School, and then I just never left.
Yeah.
I wish I had a reason to go back.
Utah was a 5-year plan for me. So my wife and I met in Brazil, and when we got married, I had already finished school before we met, and I was like, I really want you to get an education in case like I die young or something. Like that was really on my mind. So I was like, let's move out to Utah. School's cheap. We'll be there for 5 years and cheap relative to like the rest of the US. And then we'll move, right? So it's like a full 5-year plan, and I've been here 7 years now. So we've gotten sucked in.
I've gotten beat. Been here for 14 years.
So telling me, brother, you got me beat. Yeah.
You got me beat. It's got me beat.
Well, that's
It's not just beating me up and I stay. I heard that wrong.
yeah, my brother moved out here in 2005 and he's been here ever since.
So 2000.
Yeah, it's good.
It's good.
Has its perks.
It's got its perks and it's got its.
So is everywhere.
One thing my wife loved about Georgia was just like diversity in Georgia, like in Atlanta, like
for sure.
like literally we lived in this apartment complex. There was a Kroger next door, and you'd go there and there's like ladies at the checkout were either from Serbia. There's a lot from like Kenya and what like just the different cultures and everything. So we kind of miss that, but I mean, Salt Lake's starting to become more of a melting pot, but
Culture and the beach was what I miss.
yeah.
The water.
I was a beach. Well, I only lived in North Carolina, so I was like 4.5. So I was a beach bum, but only till 4.5. And then I was a redneck.
A beach motel 4.5.
And then I became a full-fledged redneck in Western Pennsylvania. So
Nice.
There's not that many people.
yeah. Yeah. But it's good. That's awesome. North Carolina. How long did you live in North Carolina?
I lived in North Carolina when I was 12.
Okay.
I was in Raleigh.
Raleigh's a really nice place.
I loved it. I used to go back and visit. I finally took my family out there.
Nice.
And it was kind of a fun experience. I got to experience a tornado and a hurricane all in one visit. Freaking out, and I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I lived in North Carolina for 9 months.
We're at in Raleigh.
It was good.
Yeah.
Did you have a job there?
My father-in-law, they lived in North Carolina for 1.5 years. And we thought about move down there, but we didn't like it that much.
Yeah.
And then we just came back to Utah. Yes,
Gave it a shot.
yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
It was great.
I had a hard time moving to Utah because growing up, I swore I would never live in Utah. Like I told my mom all the time I will not move to Utah. Like I'll do school, but I'm leaving. Like I'm not living in Utah. And now I'm here. My wife doesn't want to leave. I'm laying down roots. So. But
had she been here before?
No, so my wife, we met serving in LDS mission and together, and then I came home and I went back to Brazil. We got engaged after like a week. And then we decided that Utah was where we were gonna start. So I moved out here to get a job. She spent 6 months waiting for her visa in Brazil, moves to Pennsylvania with my parents. So she met her in-laws by herself in a different country.
Oh my God.
She is like, when you think strong Brazilian woman, like this is my wife, like she is amazing. And yeah, but my mom's also like the sweetest, bubbly lady ever. So like, it didn't matter who it was, she was gonna love her. And then I flew out 2 days before the wedding, and then
Oh my gosh.
we got married. So we were in person dating like 13 days or 15 days. Like ridiculous. So when people say like, yeah, we're gonna run off and get married, like, all right, do you? 'Cause, yeah, it worked. But yeah, so after we got married, she came out here for the first time, and
She loved it.
Nice.
yeah, I've got my brother's here, and then my grandma. My mom's from Bountiful, so I have some extended family here, and then my aunt, my dad's sister, lives here. And so my wife was like, I kind of like having at least your family around because none of her family's here. So
Yeah.
that's when. So I had to find a reason to stay, and I really like trail running now, like in hikes and stuff. So that's kind of why.
Yeah.
I just miss the green from back east. Like I love green trees and just not being able to see the next city. Like you can see to Salt Lake from basically here, right? And like I miss having the tucked around hills and little cities and okay, here's a city, and then you go around the next mountain and here's the next place. But it's all good.
Totally different. Totally different.
Yeah.
All right, we're going again.
Yep.
Okay, I'll take it around people up.
We're gonna get started for those of you on Zoom. We should be able to cruise through and hopefully end a little bit early, get you guys out. We'll wait to see if.
She come up when we're ready to start.
All right. We're gonna talk about morning routines, and then we'll get into fears, distractions, and then end with habits. Okay. So who has a morning routine in here? Nobody has a morning routine. You're like, I don't like to share what I do every morning. Okay. Anybody want to share a few things that you do every morning?
Mine kind of sucks.
Snooze button, snooze button, snooze button.
Run, and then scream on the way to get out of the door.
Like, I'm real consistent. Everyone's the same thing.
Better, but that is very consistent.
There you go. I love that. Any other, you want
You know,
to?
I turn on coffee,
Okay,
and when you say relax, meditation, that's really kind of my meditation. I just sit there and take that 30 minutes and just drink. I mean, it's a ritual for me.
Yeah.
Flip it on, wait for it to heat up, do the grind and all that stuff, but it's a ritual for me. And then I kind of start my day after that.
I love that.
But yeah, and I think whatever I want to think. I don't, whatever. That's
great.
just what I do. I only have one a day too.
There you go.
I don't all day.
I love that. The reason I ask about morning routines, morning routines are different for everybody, right? Every phase of life, like getting kids out the door is a nightmare, right? Like, yeah, I get it. Doesn't matter how early you have to leave. If you have to leave at 7, you're just as crazy as if you have to leave at 10, right? Like it's crazy getting out the door. But morning routines are important. That doesn't mean it has to be a 4-hour routine and you have to wake up at 4 in the morning, right? Like there's a lot of studies that show highly successful people, and oftentimes that's success monetarily or power, but success is different for everybody, so that may not even be what you're wanting. But having some kind of established routine, we learn it as a young kid. That's why kids love routines, because it's a safe place and you know what's going to happen. You have predictable results. We talked about filtering through and understanding who we truly are and what we want out of life and envisioning the next 20 years. Well, your routine is should be a direct reflection of that vision that you have for 20 years. So what happens is a lot of our anxiety and a lot of our stress in life comes from, I know who I am, I know what I want out of life, but my actions do not go along with what I want out of life, right? Like I want to be able to, we'll use the kids going out the door if you'll allow me. Like I want to get out the door in a nice, calm, peaceful manner, right? You don't have control over how your kids are going to wake up in the morning, right? So we've already learned about stoicism and how you just have to accept that. But does your routine allow you to even get out the door in a peaceful manner on time? My wife and I go through this a lot because we're very slow to get out the door. But the biggest thing with the morning routine is to establish, does this align with who I want to be in my life, or does it not? Is it setting me up for success for the day? So it could be a quick 15-minute meditation, prayer, reading of a self-help book, and like that's all you need, right? I would be hard pressed to say there's not many people that are like, I can wake up and run out the door and start doing things and they can truly say like, yeah, I'm good in my mental headspace. Like that doesn't happen often. Like most people need at least a minute to like, what am I doing with my life, right? Unless, because there's morning routines often start with your bedtime routine. And again, go back to kids, like we can learn so much from kids. What do we do with kids, right? We want to get them into a bedtime routine. Why? One, because they go to sleep better and they oftentimes wake up better, right? It's a principle that we can apply in our lives too. How am I going to bed? Am I sitting up watching a Netflix till midnight knowing I have to wake up at 5? Because if I'm planning on waking up at 5, that's my ideal life. Is my choice the day before leading to that lifestyle that I want to live? Oftentimes it's not, right? We make every excuse to stay up till midnight knowing we have to wake up at 5 in the morning the next day, right? So it's our choice. So a bedtime routine is super important as well. Are you looking at your phone, flipping through Facebook or Instagram, getting that dopamine that Ashley was talking about? Are we getting that before we go to bed, or are we relaxing and coming back to ourself before we go to sleep, and then we wake up as ourselves, right? So I'd encourage you to think on that. Like there's no correct morning routine, right? There's nothing that says you have to do this and that. Whatever works for you. If you're doing that, you got that dialed in, great. Now look at your bedtime routine. Is it really hard to get into your morning routine? If it is, it's probably because your bedtime routine is off, right? You're not doing that consistent. Or are you consistent at going to bed at the same time, but like you still feel like you're stressed out early in the morning? Now you know what to focus on, right? I had an experience. I always knew about morning routines, and I had a really good morning routine for a while. And then with kid number 1, that got thrown off. And then I kind of just got out of having a really good morning routine. And I realized like every morning I wake up in a second, and this is a principle I'll talk about here. Do you have an eraser? No. As I take down the whole thing. Sweet. So I would wake up, I'd open my eyes, and literally the second I opened my eyes, I could just feel it. I could feel life flooding in. Like, I've got to do this, I've got to talk to these agents, I've got to go prospect today, I've got to deal with this fire that I didn't put out yesterday, right? And like just life was just flooding in. And then to top it off, baby would start screaming like a minute after I wake up, right? So it was just like, oh yeah, life's here, like this sucks. And I didn't want to feel that, right? So Jason, owner of the company that I work for, he shared this thing that he did in the morning. I thought he was ridiculous. Like, it's like, dude, that is so corny. But he, every morning, before he would open his eyes, I don't know how that's possible. I haven't mastered that, but he said he could do it before he even opened his eyes. The alarm would go off and he would force himself to smile. I'm like, dude, that's so corny. Like, what are you talking about? It's ridiculous, right? Like, it sounds corny. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna just wake up and smile. Like, I was kind of like those, I grew up, I'm a Marine son, right? Like, just be hard-headed and like just push through, be a man, rub some dirt on it. Like, that was the mentality that I had. And then I was like, it was happening so often that I had just these feelings flood in. And I was like, whatever, fine. Tomorrow I'm gonna smile. And so I woke up and I opened my eyes because I don't even know how that's possible to wake up and not open your eyes, but then I closed them again. I was like, okay, this is so dumb, but I'm gonna do it. And I stopped and I smiled and it was like, poof, gone. Like, all the bad feelings gone. It was wild. And what I learned from that was a principle that's taught in that Stutz documentary. It's called Part X. So Part X is a principle that talks about our fears and all of the things that we have in our life that have to happen, right? So basically what it is you got your little cell, right? And you're all happy. I've got my vision, I've got my plans. Who's done this before? Like, maybe those of you that are new real estate agents, or those of you that are experienced, that you're thinking, oh, I'm going to dive into this venture, or I'm going to join this new brokerage or this new team, whatever it is. And you're like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And then all of a sudden, oh, you can't do it. Oh, you might not make as much money as you think you are. Oh, people don't like you. Oh, you're going to have to prospect more than you do right now. And all of these X's, or all of these doubts, fears, these thoughts come into your brain telling you, I can't live in alignment with what I just thought, or my true feelings of what I want. Has anybody had that happen before? Yeah, that was that feeling. Like, Part X was engulfing me the second I woke up. And when I smiled, it was like Part X disappeared, right? And that's what the documentary talks about. Tools, they're these mindset activities like Life Force and a few others that you can watch and learn about, but it's to get through Part X, because we all deal with it the second we have a great thought, because that's life, right? There's equal and opposite in all things. So if you have a really good feeling, a thought, I'm going to do this and I'm going to accomplish in my life, you can betcha soon after the negative thought's going to come to you as well. Right? And the key is to understand what's truth, what's right for you. And I'm going to move forward with what it is that I believe. And I'm going to push away Part X. I'm going to filter through all of the X's and get through to what it is that I want. Does that make sense? I love that visual, because for me, it's like, okay, I see my X's. I'm going through the day. I'm literally swimming through all of my X's to deal with them. And one other technique that he talks about is called the shadow. Sorry, the snapshot or illusion. So we all have this like perfect. No, it is. Sorry, guys. It is the shadow. So we all
just crossed it out.
sorry.
That's why you guys are.
So we all basically have our form. So you got the hard line, yourself, and then you have your shadow inside, right? And your shadow is your negative thoughts or feelings, your shame that you feel. And the problem is we tend to deny or avoid our shadow. So for Jonah Hill, and there's a clip in here that he talks about his shadow. It was the 14-year-old boy that was overweight and had acne, right? That's what Jonah Hill has always been like the media always goes after Jonah Hill for his weight, right? And because he's an actor that's done, he's grown into roles where he's an overweight person in the video, and then there's roles that he's like super skinny, right? And he's done that throughout his career, but it would always work on him that like he couldn't get past this image that he had of himself. So what the principle talks about, and let me switch colors here, is removing your shadow and putting it next to you, and essentially having an interview with your shadow. So think on like, what is the root cause of my negative feelings? What is the root cause of my part X in a lot of ways, right? So it could be past experiences, it could be upbringing. So for me, like when I think of doing business ventures or different things, or investing in real estate, my parents never invested in real estate. It's 401k. We're going to invest in that until we're 90 years old and stop working and then try to retire, right? Like the American dream of what we've been told. And I'm coming into a world where I'm learning about investing in real estate and all of these other things that you can do in life that I didn't even know were a thing, right? And so for me, a lot of my shadow is a safety shadow. I envision myself as this safe person that lives a safe life, that never takes risk. But my true self, who I want to be, is like, let's take some risks, let's try things, let's mess up, let's learn from life. So the principle talks about removing the shadow, accepting who it is. So Jonah Hill, he had to accept his overweight 14-year-old self with acne and recognize that that person exists, but that it's no longer who you are. The problem is we oftentimes put that person away and try to hide them from the world. And that's what causes us a lot of stress, anxiety. And that's what causes part X to flood in so much more, because we've never accepted ourselves for what we've been in the past. We've never accepted choices that we've made, and we can't push past them. So I would encourage you to do this practice of the shadow, of interviewing. Try to dial in like what's holding you back, or what's inside that maybe is your old self that you need to not release, because you never truly release those things. Past experiences you never truly release. You can forgive people, you can move on, but they're always there. It's a matter of accepting, recognizing, and then learning from that. Make sense? Okay. Thought.
Yes, Bob. If you keep going back to what the past was, you cannot move forward. That's one thing that I've had discussions with individuals about.
Yep.
So people say they have to do this, and I said, well, you know what happened then is then leave whatever those experiences were, gain good things from the experience. So don't run out now and say, I can't do because of this.
Yeah, that's called the maze. He talks about that. Yeah. So you get lost in your maze of past experiences rather than straightening out the line, learning from the experience and moving on. So the most common fears, this is from the book Think and Grow Rich, poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death. Which we can probably all agree that these are pretty common fears, right? Like a lot of people have a fear of getting old, and oftentimes they have a fear of getting old because that's often related with death. Loss of love. Sometimes we're in a relationship, doesn't work out, and now we have a fear of even connecting with people because we don't want that to happen again. Ill health. I mean, I don't think anybody enjoys being sick. But oftentimes we create sickness in a way, or because we're so fearful of that, we create it as our reality through our choices and actions. And again, it goes back to the principle of everything that goes on in here creates your physical world. Like your external world is a direct reflection of your internal world. So whatever you got going on in here, that's what you're going to see outside. We all had a perfect visual of this over the last couple of years, right? COVID, we've got the real estate market. Like, is it good or is it bad? Is it going to crash or is it going to keep going up? Like, and everybody has a polarized opinion. Everybody has a polarized for the most part, opinion on COVID in a lot of ways, right? And so whatever we've got going on in here, that's how we're going to perceive the world, right? So I love the quote, the most important real estate to develop is the 6 inches between your ears. That's why I love talking about this topic, because we're all real estate people, we understand the development. So recognize these fears and let's talk about how to get through some of these fears. Behavioral. Okay. Distraction. What distracts us will begin to define us. We don't need to swing at every pitch. Anybody a baseball fan in here? Yeah, a couple baseball fans. So I love baseball. I played baseball. Oh, sorry. Keyword fear. I almost walked right past that one. Keyword is fear for credit. So I love baseball because in my opinion, it's the hardest sport. Like and the reason being, it's so intimate between the pitcher and the batter, and like, not that everybody else is irrelevant, but like so much happens just within the 65 feet between the pitcher and the batter, and there's so much mental stuff. And I don't know if you ever try to hit a 98-mile-per-hour fastball. It's really hard. It's really, really hard. And then talk about that, but it's now moving in different directions. Like, it's insane, right? You have to make a opinion on whether you're going to swing or not within like 0.001 second or something. Like, you blink and you can't even, anyways, it's ridiculous. But what's crazy is a batter, when they go approach the plate, they have a mindset around their approach to a specific pitcher, right? So that's why they switch pitchers occasionally against certain batters, because it throws off the mindset of the preparation. So they've prepared for this pitcher, and I know my weakness. So Bryce Harper, anybody know Bryce Harper, the name Bryce Harper? He plays for the Philadelphia Phillies now. I'm a big Bryce Harper fan. He plays with a lot of passion, takes it too far sometimes, but he is terrible at down and in. Like, he can't hit it. Throw it high and outside, he's gonna hit a home run basically every time. If you miss, like, if you put it perfectly where he likes it. So Bryce Harper knows anything down and in, I'm not swinging, even if it's a strike. Unless there's 2 strikes, obviously, then he has to swing. But he will avoid it because he knows he's not good at it. But if that's a fastball high and outside, first pitch I'm swinging. That is his mindset. And so from this quote, we don't have to swing at every pitch. It's the same thing in our lives. There's so many business opportunities. There's so many different ways to do the business. There's so many types of relationships that you can have. You don't have to swing at all of them. You have to swing at what you're good at and what's going to bring the most success. Now, you're in a sticky bind or a sticky situation, and you have 2 strikes and you're behind the count. You better swing at the low and inside, or else you're going to strike out, right? So anyways, I like that analogy for life of making sure that we're focusing on what it is that we want, not getting distracted. Okay.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, go for it.
So sometimes when we are trying to build, say, maybe one of our marketing strategies, and we're working at it and we're being consistent, and then we don't see results immediately, I think human nature is first to back off and say, are we really spending our time wisely on this particular thing? Because we don't see anything. And I think that's a common mistake with realtors, is that we need to stay consistent for a long period of time doing that particular marketing before you're going to see a results from it. And so those distractions, you need to realize you need to be careful that you're not getting distracted by something that's not going to help with your marketing. So I love a book, and maybe you've read this one too, but it's called Fake Work versus Real Work. So you got to be clear on what's real work and what's fake work, which just kind of makes you feel busy, and what's actually getting you closer to your goals and your dreams. And are you being consistent long-term in that marketing strategy? Does that make sense?
It does. I love that. Thank you for that book recommendation as well. I got a long flight coming up, so I need some more books. So the effective praise, and actually we're going to talk about that phenomenon of not sticking with our goals long enough here just a bit from the book Atomic Habits. So the effective praise, I love talking about this because we see it all the time. So children, so they did a study, they gave kids puzzles, and then they praised them in different fashions throughout the process of doing different puzzles. So the children that were praised for intelligence or a final result, right? You get A's, you get taken out to dinner, or you get Krispy Kreme donuts or whatever. Kids that were praised for the intelligence or the final result, they quit more quickly, had higher levels of frustration, and if given the chance, they selected the easier puzzles. But kids that were praised for the process or hard work, they persisted more, enjoyed learning, and when given the choice, they selected harder puzzles. Why would a kid that got a C minus, right? Why would they select to do advanced organic chemistry one day? And why would the person that was praised for getting A's want to take basic math? Why do you think that would be?
The process of getting.
Yeah.
Or where they go to the
themselves, they could see the difference of that they could do it themselves and push through it.
Yeah, they saw that they could do it themselves. And with that, they know my recognition or my praise or my self-worth is not tied to an end result. So even if I get an F in this class, it's okay. I tried and I can try again, or I can change my route and do something different. So just as we should do that with, I mean, I was a lot of times growing up, everybody does it, right? Where we naturally gravitate to the praising through intelligence or final results, because one, it's easier as the person holding the kid or the other person accountable. It's a lot easier to say, oh, you didn't reach your goal. Why didn't you? It's a lot harder to say, hey, great job trying, great job making your prospecting calls. Let's dial in and try to figure out what's going on, what's actually wrong, what could give you the end result that you actually want, but let's just focus on the process, right? So think of it for yourself. How do you like praise? I know in a lot of ways, I enjoy just being rewarded for my final result. Like I recognize that. But when we're focused on the final result, it's a yes or no. Because if you don't sell, if your goal is 20 houses and you don't sell 20 houses, if you sell 19 houses, you're gonna be pretty happy. Say that your goal is 20. If you sell 19 houses, you're probably gonna be pretty happy, right? Yeah. But you failed. Based on the way that you praise yourself and then based on your goal, you failed. And that's the principle of praising yourself and focusing on the process. So what your actual goal should be is you have your goals or your vision or your focus is I'm a real estate agent that sells 20 homes a year. What's the process that gets me there? And that is your goal. Your goal is to live the process. Your goal is not the end result. Because if you sell 18 houses, you're happy. If you sell 25 houses, you're ecstatic. But guess what? You now feel confident in setting a bigger goal next year or a bigger vision. I said, I don't even like using the term goal. I think your goal should be your process and your vision is what's actually driving you because it's a different feeling, right? You're trying to create something, but if you don't get there, it doesn't matter because I'm living out the process. So you learn how to make 50 prospecting calls a day. You learn how to talk to a certain amount of people, set a certain amount of appointments. And those principles, if dialed in this year, can be grown next year, or maybe even taught to somebody else, and now you can grow a team or whatever your vision and your goals are, right? So praise yourself on the process, not your end result. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck in a yes or no success or failure lifestyle. And that's what causes us to do New Year's resolutions. And by January 30th or whatever, how many days are in January 10th, we're already done, right? Like it doesn't even have to go to the end of January. Oftentimes New Year's resolutions don't happen because of that, because you miss one time and you're a failure because our goal is always based on the end result. So unfortunately, my wife's a straight A student. I always tease her. She went to Ensign College and She got all A's, but on a religious class, she got an A-. I always tease her about that. And I'm like the B- student that just like learned what needed to be learned in order to get the grades and everything. But I told her, I was like, this is important. And it's funny because she's even seeing it in her own life of the thanks, yeah. Where she still pushed for the A's and she got them, she beat herself up like crazy for an A-, right? And she wishes that she would have been able to look at that and be like, oh, that's fine, like it's still a good grade and I graduated. But she beat herself up so much because growing up, she was always oriented on the final result. Self-esteem. I love this slide. So what's the first word? Where does self-esteem come from? Okay, so what's the first word in self-esteem? Yes. Your self-esteem comes from self, it's you. So often we talk about self-esteem based off of how we feel in front of others, right? Like I have really good self-esteem, like I feel like I have pretty good self-esteem, right? But I've been wired to think of that means I feel comfortable standing in front of people and talking. And that's wrong, because it's gonna sound terrible. It doesn't matter what you guys think, right? It matters what I think about myself, because self-esteem comes from self, right? So that's why positive affirmations are good. Telling yourself the truth, feelings that you have around yourself, having real dialogue with yourself, and occasionally involving trusted friends. That's not to say I have a mentor and basically whatever he says, I take as truth because I know he will always tell me something that's beneficial for me. So that's not to say you can't get the opinions of others, but my self-worth doesn't come from anybody else. And I'm still working through it. That's not to say like I'm perfect in this. I'm still trying to figure it out, but self-esteem comes from self. Don't look to others for self. It's self-esteem. Okay. Last bit of emotions, and then we'll get to habits real quick. I love looking at this diagram. So what it is, basically they did an MRI scan of people's bodies and they showed them different pictures. And their bodies had chemical reactions. In your body, it's all about heat, right? Where the blood flow is going, what neurons and where the functions of the body show heat. So in yellow, orange, and red, black is neutral, meaning there's just nothing really going on there. And then blue is the absence. So it's like fear, right? Well, and I guess it's not even fear, it's just the absence of blood flow. So it's the absence of activity in the body. Anything stick out to you from these? The warmth of happiness is spread out throughout the body. I always love looking at love and happiness, because if you look at happiness, or let's call it joy, right? Like it's an all-encompassing feeling throughout your body. Whereas love, what's happening? It's a biological function. We're talking love is in an emotional connection, a sexual connection. That's why the blood flow is here in the brain, in the loins, and in the heart, right? That's where everything's happening. But you go to happiness, it's spread out. It's a good feeling throughout the body. You got depression. Like I said, blue is the lack of function in the body. That's a pretty good depiction, right? Like you can't move, you don't want to walk, you don't want to do anything. It's the absence. Yeah.
It's kind of surprising to see pride and anger very similar.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, pride in a lot of respects is, it's a self-involving feeling. But you're right. The one difference that I noticed from that, Martel, is anger also includes the hands, because that's your fight or flight, right? So pride, you're very boastful in your heart and in your brain, and that's where that connection is being made. But your anger also involves your hands, because now you got to fight somebody off. Yeah, any others? I like talking about anxiety. Anxiety, you'd think it would look a little bit more like depression. But who's had that heart, like anxious feeling in your heart? Like, yeah. Got a couple, I have that, I've had that, it happens all the time. It's like this pinching feeling in your chest. It's anxiety. Because your whole focus is it's raising your heart rate, you're getting worked up, but you notice there's no activity in your brain. Anxiety removes the activity from your brain. So that's why it's important for us to recognize these moments when we're feeling anxiety. We've got to reconnect our brains somehow to work through the feeling that we're having to then bring back the happiness and joy through our bodies. So, okay, let's talk habits. We got maybe 10 minutes left and then we'll wrap up. So where do our habits come from? I'll keep clicking and then you can maybe. Any thoughts? Yeah.
It's things we do every day.
Things we do every day, yeah. So the whole point of this class, guys, the mindset and our attitudes toward things, now we create our behaviors, and that's where our habits come from. Yeah, so it starts with our mindset, creates an attitude, creates a behavior, and that's what we do. Because when we think of the word habit, all we ever think about is the thing that we do habitually, the thing we do over and over and over and over and over again, right? But sometimes it's the exact same act, or sometimes it's the exact same feeling that we're creating, or like when we talked about pleasure and masking, maybe you're masking your pain by drinking tonight, and then it's a drug, and then maybe it's quad riding, and then maybe it's drinking a Coca-Cola. Like there's all these different forms of masking our pain, and so you can create a habit in a lot of different fashions, right? But a habit to its core is something that you do repetitively, whether good or bad. So talking about that, it's when trying to establish a habit, you've got your y-axis, that's your motivation, your x-axis, that's how hard is it or how easy is it. So you've got line B, if it's super easy, sometimes you just can't say no, right? Is that like maybe brushing your teeth? So easy, you're just gonna do it. And it doesn't require a lot of motivation. But something that's really hard, like I'm going to go to the gym for 2 hours a day, every day for the rest of my life. That takes a lot of motivation, right? And it's going to be really hard to keep going. It's going to be inconsistent. So what we have is sustainability and effort, right? So the more effort it takes, the harder it's going to be, right? So you're going to burn out. It's not sustainable. So in B, you're gonna burn out a lot faster, right? So I'm gonna go work out for 2 hours a day for the rest of my life. You're gonna burn out, probably, right? But in Atomic Habits, it's a book, they say that it talks about this guy that wanted to lose a significant amount of weight. He went to the gym for 5 minutes a day, and then he left. And he got in the habit of going for 5 minutes a day, and then he would leave. And what's great about that is eventually he got to after a few months, he's like, well, I'm already here. Why don't I just work out? Right. And so he learned the habit of starting. It was so easy. He couldn't say no to show up for 5 minutes. And then eventually he lost all of the weight and then some. So that's, if you're trying to start a habit, you make it so easy you can't say no, and then increase the difficulty from there. Plateau of latent potential. So this is what Kimberly was talking about earlier. You've got time. We want results to happen in a linear fashion, right? So I put in X amount of time, I get Y result, right? It's just like, I worked out yesterday, I want to lose a pound. I worked out again, I want to lose another pound, right? And if you want to lose 100 pounds in 100 days, you're going to be fit. Does that happen? No, it doesn't. Yeah. I had days I was on point with my diet and I gained 2.5 pounds. Eat fiber, that's what I figured out. You retain water. But you have this valley of disappointment, right? Where I'm putting in time and it's not meeting my linear results that I want. And we get this valley of disappointment where we give up New Year's resolutions, we give in, right? But what actually happens is there comes a time, it always happens. It's the law of numbers, right? It always happens. You prospect enough, eventually you're going to have enough business where it's exponentially growing, right? And you figure it out. And it seems like it just clicked. It didn't just click. You put in enough time and enough effort to get the results that you want. So anybody found themselves in a valley of disappointment in their life? Yeah. Okay. If you're in a valley of disappointment and in something in your life, recognize that that's what you're in, that you maybe just haven't put in enough time to get the result that you want. And eventually you will. Oops, sorry guys. There you go. You're good. We're getting pictures taken for those of you on Zoom. Okay, let's. Yeah.
I guarantee you that again.
I got no shame. Okay, so the 3 layers of behavior change. So anybody heard of Simon Sinek? Really good. I'd look him up. Really great business talker, motivational guy. But he talks about Apple and like the why, the how, and the what. When you're talking about personal behavior changes, what we always focus on is the outcome. So I want to lose 20 pounds, and I go back to losing weight because it's something that we all talk about all the time. So I want to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to go to the gym for an hour a day and eat a restrictive diet. And then I'm going to be somebody that's fit, right? That's what we always do. That's our goal oriented. We're focused on praising ourselves with the end result. Flip that. What if you thought about yourself as, hey, I'm a fit person? What does a fit person do? What's the process? Oh, they don't eat this or they eat that, right? Oh, magically after 6 months, I'm this person because that's my identity and I've fulfilled that. I've drawn it out to the outcome. So if you want true behavior change, don't focus on who you want to become. Know who you want to become, visualize it, but visualize yourself already being there and build out the process to become that person. That's how you'll actually change. Okay. Last thing, habits that stick. They require a cue. So this is all in the book, Atomic Habits. I'm not some genius that came up with this. It's all in there. So you have to have a cue, something that sets you off. So like put your gym clothes where they're clearly visible. I will not kid with you. This is me. This is my personal thing. There was a time I would wake up, and this is when part X was hitting me early in the morning, and I would wake up and life would hit me and I didn't want to get out of bed. If I didn't put my clothes out the night before, I kid you not, I would wake up in the morning and the thought would come, oh, I didn't put my clothes out. I can't go to the gym today. I kid you not, like it's stupid. It's stupid. But I remember that thought happening regularly. And then after like a week, I'm a pretty aware person, I feel like. I'm like, dude, you're an idiot. Like, get up, just get out of bed, right? And then I realized the morning routine thing, I just needed to make sure I was dialed in on the night before to even avoid that opportunity. So have a cue, create a craving. So it has to be attractive, right? It can't be something so ridiculous that you don't even want to try, right? So you have to have a craving, a response. So you have to make it easy. So either you're training at home or you can choose a gym that's close to you, and then reward yourself, make it satisfying. So 6 months ago, or 4 or 5 months ago, when I decided to lose weight, Jeff has been telling me about these shirts that he wears. I'm like Jeff. I like simplicity and I like black shirts. Well, there's this this brand called Built, and I always thought his shirts were awesome. So I said, when I hit my goal, I'm going to buy myself a couple shirts. And so here I am wearing my Built shirt today. But I had a reward, right? And this, like, these shirts are literally $30 a piece. Like, I've never spent that much on a t-shirt in my life. I've never even really bought a t-shirt in my life. I just wear everything that people give me. But it felt so good okay, I did the process and I rewarded myself. So if you're trying to make something stick, create a reward for yourself. I know an agent that would buy himself a new pair of shoes every time that he sold a house. So he'd go to a closing with a new pair of shoes. Like, yeah, it may sound like some ridiculous expense, but for him, it drove him to do more, right? So it doesn't matter what it is. It's important to you. That's all that matters. Flip side of that, you want to stop something. So I always use stopping smoking because everybody can kind of understand the craving and the social cues that come with a habit like smoking. So if you're trying to stop something, or even like a pornography addiction, if you're trying to get through a pornography addiction, what do? They make it less obvious. So you take away electronics, you're around other people because you're probably not doing that while you're with other people, for the most part. So you make it less obvious, you make it less attractive, so it's not, you show yourself results of if you continue to do that habit, right? The response, you make it more difficult. So I had a friend who wanted to stop smoking. I was always the DD growing up, so I would drive all of my friends everywhere. I enjoyed going out with them. It was a lot of fun. But I didn't drink, and so they loved it because they always had a DD, and I loved it because they're hysterical when they're drunk. But I had a friend that wanted to stop smoking. And so in order to do, but he became a social smoker. He would do it when we would go out to the bar. And so what we would do is we made it less obvious. So he wasn't allowed to buy smokes, and nobody else in our group would take them. Right. And then we would make it less attractive. I had a little cue card that I would carry around with like pictures of results if you're a smoker or whatever, like those pictures of lungs and teeth, all the things, right? Like it's so really stupid. And like anytime he'd be like, hey, I really want to have one. And I'm like, this is you in 40 years or whatever. And it worked for me. It's like, dude, oh no, I don't think I want that. And we also made it more difficult. So we didn't have the smokes with anybody in the group. And if we saw somebody in the place that we were at smoking, we would remove ourselves. Either we go somewhere else or we would just move to a different part of the venue. So he wasn't around it. Like we were all in on this, right? And he did it. He stopped smoking and like has never gone back, because then he learned to avoid those cues by himself. He didn't need other people, right? So if you're trying to create a habit or stop a habit, use this process. Like I said, I can send the slides so you have it. The last thing I'll say, habit stacking. When you stack habits, so this is, you set the coffee pot in the morning, right? I had a guy who really wanted to start reading, but could never find a time because of his kids. They're always like, the second they wake up, they need his attention. So he realized, okay, I turn on the pot, and then in the 10 minutes it takes to roast the pot, he had his book sitting next to the coffee pot. He would grab his book, sit down and read, and then it would go off, and he would drink his coffee and he'd be on his day, right? And then eventually he did other things around that. So like for me, we've done that with our kids' bedtime routines. So our bedtime routine, I kind of have taken that over because I don't get to spend a ton of time with my daughters. So I give Mel a bath, we do her hair, we do personal affirmations in the mirror. And then for us, we do scripture study as a family. We say a prayer together as a family. And we do now, but that was our structure originally, right? Now we've added 1, 2, 3. It's this idea that I had a couple months ago where you share something you want to do better, 2 things that you enjoyed from the day, and 3 things that you're grateful for. And we do that. So we added that into our routine. And now my wife and I, we needed to go to bed earlier because in order for us to get up in the morning routine, we have to go to bed. So the cue for us to get ready for bed is when the girls have gone to sleep. And so now we're stacking, okay, now we're going to get a shower and we're going to start our bedtime routine off of that routine, right? So if you're like, I don't even know where to fit this into my schedule, just fit it into something that you do on a consistent basis. When you stack your habits, it becomes a lot easier. Does that make sense? Or the contrary, if you want to stop something, figure out when you do it all the time. Like if you're by yourself and you do something you don't want to do, okay, well then remove yourself from that situation, right? So habit stacking is a great resource. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So if you don't have a system built out, if you don't have a process, you're not going to reach your goals because you haven't built out how you're going to actually reach, and like we said, our vision. Yeah.
All right, we'll take you back one. What's your nighttime habit with your girls? One thing you want to do better?
One thing you want to do better, 2 things you liked from the day. So 2 activities that you did that you thought were really cool, because we want to make sure that we're enjoying our life, right? Not just, oh, I need to be better in the future. And then 3 things you're grateful for, just because we need to show more gratitude. And my 4-year-old's caught on, like she now understands what's gratitude and what's like, oh, that was cool. And what she's now working on, not screaming and crying, is a reaction. Like, I love that. I'm like, please stop screaming and crying so much. It's great. Success comes when you wake up and can be genuinely happy with the life you're living. That's what we're all after. is to live the life that we want. Here's the book list. So if you want to take a picture of that, this is where a lot of the content comes from. These books have changed my life. The E-Myth is a lot about growing a business and structuring a business, Think and Grow Rich. I mean, that just blew my absolute mind. I love that book. That's the content that I have. I appreciate you guys letting me be here. We have a sponsor that I'll let Jeff introduce. But make sure you have a sign in. Oh, I didn't give you the last keyword. It's Q. So CUE, it's Q. I almost walked right past it. I'll give you the 3 keywords. It's life, force, fear, and Q. So if you didn't watch the whole time and you just paid attention now, you got a chance to. There you go. So yeah, if you can email those up for you on Zoom, just email that to me. Everybody that's here and did the sign in, you guys get credit. If you're on Zoom, and just
That sign in, it's rendered.
yeah. But if you guys, like I said, the invites are there for all of the different activities. If you need somebody to talk to, call me. If you want somebody to bounce an idea of how do I create this habit, I'm here for you. And that's all I've got. I appreciate your time.
Wow, that was pretty good, Josh. I think we should have you back. What do you think, guys? It does all start with our mindset, right? I mean, what we think about becomes our activities and then it becomes our habits. I love the way you started with that. And if you aren't thinking about the right things, you're not doing the right things, right? So choose and be careful what you put in your minds. So we do have a sponsor here. Is Jake or Josh here, or we got you? Just you. I would prefer you, actually. I know Jake and Josh, so.
I am their newest addition to the team.
Awesome, come on up. So you guys pay attention here on Zoom. We do have a sponsor in the house that graciously brought us lunch, so we're gonna have lunch and visit afterwards and stuff. But NAC Home Loans, tell me your name.
KL, just like the letters.
KL. KL is here, so come stand up here so they can see you and tell us a little bit about NAC.
So at NAC, I actually, just so you guys know, because you guys all know Jake and Josh, I guess. I used to work with them before, because I just came back very excited. But at NAC, we are a broker. So we work with over 40 different lenders. All of us have different specialties. Jake kind of is all over the place. Josh does a lot of like Hispanic loans and things like that. I do a lot of self-employed and construction loans. And so I'm coming on to do more of those. Obviously, we do have options for everything. No, you're good. Oh, did they send you something?
No,
Oh.
but I have a wonderful daughter that does stuff.
Oh, what a cute
So
little take on there.
Yeah, there's Josh's QR. I'll leave that up for a second. If you guys want to connect with Josh, hit that. Reach out to me too. I can send you these slides. And there's Jake's.
And I'm here for Jake, but anyway, yeah, we have a lot of different programs. One that I like that we have right now is the 40-year loan. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the one that Mountain America has that has a balloon that's been really popular right now. Ours is not. So
Wow.
they don't have to worry about a balloon payment in 15 years. It's just 40 years. And then we've got 1% down programs. We do mobile homes, manufactured homes. Exciting.
Hey, question on that 40-year loan about how much does that affect the payment? Like that.
Honestly,
On the spot.
it depends on the loan amount, but I mean, the last one I priced out, it was about $120 difference. But yeah, I mean, the bigger the loan, the bigger the impact. But if you guys have any questions about it, you can reach out to Jake. Or tell him you just want to talk to the girl that was in the office, and he'll know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's 3 of us females in the office, but I'm usually the only one that's, or there's 4 of us, but I'm usually.
You're the one with the cool name.
I am, yeah, there's me and Sydney and Lauren and. Lauren and Kim. They all have really easy names, but anyway. Yeah,
Awesome.
that is us.
Very good, guys. Any questions for KL on loans or what they can do? Are you guys licensed in other states?
We are, all of us are licensed in different states.
Okay.
So I can't remember where they are. I'm in Utah, Arizona, Colorado, California, Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. I used to live in Georgia. So I just recently moved back.
Very
So
good,
I'm licensed
very good.
over there.
Awesome.
Savannah. Yeah, no, actually, not very close.
So, Sophia, it's not an email for the keywords. It's actually, if you'll hit that QR code, there's a form.
Yeah.
That you're gonna fill out and it's gonna ask you to input what those keywords are on there. Okay, I'll leave that up there for a second. Reach out to me if you missed that, or Josh, we'll get it to you. Make sure you get your credit. So, we do have, upcoming trainings on our calendar, if you guys are interested. This was amazing, Josh. I've been looking forward to this one as well, so we do definitely need to get you back. I saw the list of other things you do now.
Yeah.
You only let me know one at a time. I saw that, so I'm on to you now. But we've got extreme leads for realtors next week. We've got managing your database for more referrals after that. We've got brand like a boss. That's pretty good. And then after that, Louis back with body language and interpreting body language and what that means and if it matches someone's conversation and intentions and stuff. And then in September, we're actually going to do a little bit more deeper dive on how we're creating a better agent experience here and talk about our brokerage and the trainings that we do here. So there is, you guys on Zoom, if this is your first time here with us, there is a link where you could subscribe. I'll just send you a text and an email weekly, let you know what the upcoming classes are, and you'll be able to plug into these that we do. And so great to have you guys. We're going to cut you guys loose on Zoom, and then we're just going to kind of hang out here for a little bit more and network and mastermind. So thanks for sticking around, guys. It was a great class. I know it was worth your time. Kaylee, I hope you got some work done. That hammer you had. Yeah, see you. Okay. All right, guys. Love you. Reach out if I can help you with anything.
Of course.